Welcome back, guys. So I want to tell you all about what I was so excited about on the trail camera the other day. I think I've kept you in suspense long enough. Well, here it is. The most favorite mammal that I have at the cabin and I look forward to seeing every year. The moose. Yeah, they're so awesome. Every spring they come through this logging pathway. I can pretty much set my watch or my calendar and tell you what month it is by the time they come by. It's usually the 2nd to the 4th week of April, and they're usually traveling with a yearling calf or another individual. So they tend to have some kind of, I don't know, there's a migratory pathway where they're kind of coming out from the deep bush to kind of come out to browse again. So very, very cool. Let me tell you a bit more about them. Moose are the largest member of the deer family, and they can get up to 1,300 pounds. So you can imagine that's a huge animal. They're quite tall at the shoulder, especially the adults. So you can envision almost a large draft horse size. They have a large bulbous nose and a little dewlap here underneath the chin. The males, especially during the months starting in April till about December, have antlers on their head, and the antlers start growing in April. The young ones have very small little nubs for antlers, and the larger, older males, usually between 5 to 6 years of age, are sporting the larger shovel-sized antlers. During the rut in the fall, they tend to rub them on trees and things like that, and a soft layer on the outside, the velvet, comes off. And it's sort of a display of prowess and sort of marks the territory for the breeding season. Females don't have antlers, and so you'll see them obviously without them. And the small calves too, do not have them as well. They start sprouting the antlers maybe at about a year of age. They start getting little itty bitty nubs. So the males shed their antlers December, and the younger ones by the end of February. And so sometimes they can be a little bit harder to distinguish from the females, although size is a dead giveaway. They are reddish brown in color, and they certainly they are a woodland creature, but you can see them out in the open as well. In the winter time and early spring, they certainly browse on tops of little aspens and poplars, the young tasty shoots, and other deciduous and evergreens. In the summer, they can be found, browsing on the fresh foliage, as well as in swamps, pulling out the aquatic plants to get their salt requirements, because some of those plants are higher in salt content. Speaking of salt, that's kind of the reason why you see them beside the road sometimes, especially on Highway 60 in Algonquin Park. They are sort of licking the salt that's sort of run off the roadways and highways from when we salted the highways over the wintertime. So let's investigate what the moose was nibbling on. So the tops of these twigs is what he was browsing on. So that's very typical for moose, especially in the winter and early spring before the foliage has come out. And moose poop is another sign of their presence, obviously. And it's very fibrous in nature because they are chewing on the twigs, especially in the winter time. As you can see, the stool itself is about the size of a Canadian loonie. So that's a good reference compared to deer. In the spring, the females give birth to sometimes 2 or 3 calves, especially if the feeding is very good. If the feed is good in the area, then they're healthy, then they're going to give birth to more calves at the same time. Calves tend to be around 30 pounds in weight, so they're little and awkward, and they tend to stay with their mom for about a year. Moose tend to be long-lived, and they can live up to 20 years, so that's pretty amazing. They are a force to be reckoned with in the wild, and they have been known to fend off wolf packs, although their major sources of predation are, the larger carnivores, like a pack of wolves, and of course humans as well, who hunt moose for food and for, the hide. Basically all the products of the moose can be used. Out near our cabin, the moose tend to be a bit smaller in size compared to some of the larger ones that you can find way up north or out west. I remember one of the biggest moose I'd ever seen was in, I believe it was Alberta. And we had pulled over, we were on the Trans-Canada Highway, and we saw him across the swamp, and I have never seen a bull moose that large in my entire life. I've seen them here, obviously, and I've seen them in Algonquin Park. And boy, they they grow them big out there out west. I'd never seen something like that. So I'm sure, you know, the quality of the foliage is good out there. You know, and maybe the populations are smaller, so they certainly have, you know, less pressure to compete with other animals. In Ontario, we are experiencing a decline in moose populations. I don't know if we entirely know all the reasons for it. Certainly there's pressures from illnesses like the winter tick, where the ticks latch onto them and, you know, suck their blood. And so some of them are anemic and ill and not doing well. There's also pressures, you know, on young calves for the coyotes and the wolf populations. There's also hunting pressure, and as certainly we expand, you know, making sort of developments and housing projects and other projects that require destruction of a lot of forest, it leaves access areas more open to moose, maybe for hunting pressure or things like that. I don't know. But we are seeing a decline, and therefore there is a reduced number of tags being released for moose hunting, as well as the hunting of the calves as well. Another disease that moose can get that affects their quality of life and leads to their death is brainworm. So it's a parasite they acquire, you know, from eating a snail that has eaten poop from a deer, and the deer are unaffected by the parasite. Where they occur together, as they do in this property, you know, the deer poop, the snail eats the poop, the moose eats the snail, and then the moose gets the worm that goes to its brain and causes it to act very strange and turn in circles. It obviously can't feed and ends up passing away. So that is also has effects on their overall population. Every spring I really look forward to checking my trail cams because I just know they're going to be there. I hope you guys have a great week. Thanks so much for joining me for learning all about moose. Take care.